This video is sponsored by Skillshare. I'm gonna give you 6 keys to developing Olympians as an athlete and as a coach, and we're gonna start right now. What's up everybody, it's Dane Miller from GarageStrength.com, and if this is your first time to the channel and you're interested in becoming a world-class athlete, you wanna be the best version of yourself that you can be, make sure that you like, you subscribe, and you ring that notification bell so we can help you become a champion. Athletes love to have these big, crazy visions, right? They love to sit there and say, I want to become an Olympian. I want to become a world champion. They have these lavish goals, but then they struggle to sort of piece those goals together into, all right, if this is that end result, how do I work back and how do I hold myself accountable to get to that point? So a lot of athletes and coaches struggle with that perspective of what does it take to actually develop Olympians? What does it take to actually develop a world-class athlete? Where can I even start? And that's a missing piece in a lot of sports performance and a lot of strength and conditioning, is that coaches just want you to come in, do your work and leave, and then they can wash their hands of you, right? There's a lot of factors that go into becoming a world-class athlete. That's not just strength training. It's not just technical training. There's a lot of work on mobility. There's a lot of work on visualization and the mental approach. There's a lot of different factors that go into developing an Olympian, that go into developing that world-class athlete. And from an athlete perspective, that first key factor is literally just establishing that end goal. Okay, this is one of those mental hacks, is that we can't sit here and say, I want to be really good. We need to sit here and say, I want to execute and do this. I want to achieve this moment. I want to achieve this accomplishment. I want to hit this standard or this PR, whatever it might be. And I am here on this journey and my goal is here. And now this roadmap can be developed to get me to that end journey. And that's a key factor that I've learned from some of the best sprint coaches in the world, is that, look, you can't get from point A to point B without drawing up some type of plan, without having a map to get from point A to point B. You have to establish it. If you don't know where point A and point B are, then you're not gonna be able to go anywhere. But now you're sitting there, you're saying, I'm here today, I want to become a world-class sprinter and I run a 10.5 in the 100 meters. All right, well, for you to be a world class, you got to run a 10.10 or below. So now we can sit there, we can take that established goal as an athlete, and now you know where you are at as an athlete, and to get to that 10.10 level, you've got to take care of all those little things to get there. But that first key factor is establishing that end result, that end goal, and that's the first guide to helping you become an Olympian. So as an athlete, that second big step that you've got to take now is, we've established that goal. We've established that end result. So what are we gonna do next? We have to build our schedule around it. We have to build our schedule and our plan around that goal. A lot of athletes say, I wanna become world class. I wanna be all state as a football player. I wanna be an All-American. I wanna do this. I wanna go to the Olympics. I wanna play professional football. But instead of actually sitting there and establishing that goal and then executing a schedule around it, they just say that because it's fun to say it. It's neat to feel that. It's neat to have that engagement of like, oh, that's where I wanna be. But it's hard to execute day by day by day by day by day by day to get to that point. So now, if we can take that end result here, point A, we're trying to get to point B. Point B is going to the Olympics. Now, what does it take to get there? We've got to wake up earlier in the morning so we can do mobility work. We've got to do some meditation work so we can master quiet sitting. We've got to have a period in the day where we're going to go do technical work on whatever sport that you're participating in. We have to have a point in the day where we have to do strength training. There has to be a point in the day where we have to work or go to college or go to high school, wherever it is that you're doing. So now you factor this into your goals, and that's your schedule. And it has to be executed every single day, every single week, every single month for years. So this is not a once and done thing. This is something that could take you a decade to get to. So if you're 18 years old and you want to be an Olympian, you have to create this schedule every 4 to 6 months that is going to abide by getting to that end result. And you have to constantly hone in on where are those weaknesses in your schedule so that you can constantly improve. It's not an overnight thing, but to get to that point, you have to start somewhere. And when you start somewhere and you decrease stress and you improve the way you're managing yourself as an athlete, now you can get to that top. Now you can achieve that level that you want to achieve, and you become a better athlete long term. Finally, that third key aspect from the athlete perspective is establishing that support check system. So what does that mean? That means that if I'm establishing a check support system, that means that I have, in my case, I have my wife, and I can sit there and say, hey, babe, I want to try and get done 20 YouTube videos for the week, or I want to try to achieve this from a business perspective. Well, she is something that's going to hold me accountable. She's someone that's going to sit there and say, for you to get to where we need to be financially, these things need to be executed. And it's the same skill from an athlete perspective. I want to become a world-class athlete. I want to become an Olympian. For me to get to that point, I need a support system. I need to be able to talk to my mother, to talk to my father, to talk to my brother, to talk to my sister, to talk to my friends, whoever it is, my coach, whoever it is, my teammate, and say, if I want to go out partying, put me in line, remind me what my end goals are going to be. My end goals are this. Partying is not going to help me get to that point. Now I have a check system. Hey, mom, dad, I need that positive support system. If I get out of line and I'm behind paying my cell phone bill, can you just remind me, provide some positive support, remind me that I owe you some money to pay the cell phone bill. And now we can have that support system in place so we become better athletes. We become better people. We interact with our relationships a little bit more progressively, and that's going to help us achieve greater standards as an athlete. So having that support system in place is key. So when you can sit there and you identify point A and point B, and then that big step is establish that schedule, and then that third step is establish your support system, and you tell everybody, this is my schedule, this is where I want to go, this is how I want to achieve it. They know what your goals are, and they can help hold you accountable, and that's important. We can't all do this by ourselves. You need support from your coaches, from your family, from your friends, and that's a key factor from an athlete perspective. I just finished coaching my athletes here at the United States Olympic Trials, and that brings up a perfect opportunity to talk about today's sponsor of our video, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creators and professionals where you can explore new skills and deepen existing passions. So I was excited to see that Gary Vaynerchuk has his own Skillshare class. Context is key. Social media strategy in a noisy online world. One of the biggest things that I learned from Gary Vaynerchuk is that social media is a really, really powerful tool. It's a powerful tool to share information, to help educate others, to show others your passion over a specific topic, and to entertain them while you're educating them. And so that's a key component that is pivotal towards developing an e-commerce business. And because of Skillshare's course, I was able to really cultivate that thought process. Skillshare is curated specifically for learning, meaning there's no ads, and they're always launching new premium classes, so you can stay focused and follow wherever your passions take you. If you're one of the first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description, you will get a 1-month free trial of premium membership from Skillshare today. Thank you, Skillshare, for sponsoring today's video. Now, getting into the coach's side behind developing an Olympian, what does that take? For the first big step, jumping off from that number 3 perspective for athletes, coaches need to provide a positive support system. And so what does that mean? That means that if we have an athlete that's struggling in some area, we can't criticize them negatively. We can't beat them down. We can't sit there and just yell at them. There's times that it's okay to yell at your athletes. Nucci, bring in the wood. But when they're dealing with some serious stress, when they're struggling to figure something out, as coaches, we have to provide that clear, positive support. We have to sit there and say, hey man, like, I know that you're struggling with your schedule. I know you're working quite a bit. I know that you need this money from a financial perspective, but you also have these end goals. You also have these athletic goals. And as an athlete, to get to this point, you've got to learn how to balance your schedule a little bit more effectively. Otherwise, you're not going to achieve that goal. So to do that, you can do X, Y, and Z. And now you're providing some criticism, but in a positive way. You're reminding them of what their end goals are, and you're reminding them that currently their actions aren't aligned with that end goal. And then you're providing the solution with X, Y, and Z to get back on track to the end goal. And you're doing it from a positive perspective. Oftentimes I hear coaches in throwing, in weightlifting, and they're literally just telling their athlete, you've got to try harder to lift that weight. You got to throw further. That's not an actionable support. That's not a positive actionable support. It's literally just a command, and that command is then perceived as negative, as though the athlete isn't actually trying. And so we need to, as coaches, provide that positive, clear support. And that takes us into that next step, whereas coaches, we need to have a clear line of communication, that is critically based for improvement. We're not beating them down, but we're clearly communicating what we want, what our expectations are, and then what we perceive the athlete to do with clear, positive lines of communication. So a good factor, we have a running back at the gym who's one of the best recruits in the entire country. And one of the things that he said that he loved about one of the schools recruiting him, all the other schools have been telling him, you're the best, you're the greatest, you're gonna win the Heisman Trophy. They're telling him things that he wants to hear. But one particular school sat there and said, hey, what I like is that there's a lot of flaws in your game. And what we see right now is this is where you are as an athlete. You're one of the best running backs in the entire country. But we see these specific flaws. And what we would do is when you would come in here, we would execute and improve your game with these 3 flaws. We would enhance those flaws. Now you're here, you would get to this point. And when you're at this point, now you're gonna get drafted, you're gonna go to the NFL, and the rest of your life's gonna be made, right? That's a very clear line of communication. The expectation was laid out clearly, and how it's going to get done is laid out clearly. Now, in the recruiting process, there's a lot of marketing and things like that. So from a coaching perspective, what can we take from that? What lesson can we learn? If I can sit there, especially prior to peaking athletes, and I can say to my athletes, hey, listen, this is where I see you're lacking. You're not coming in on time. You're not showing up early to do your mobility. Then when you're preparing, you're talking a little bit too much instead of focusing on your technique. You're not doing any active visualization. You're not doing any active drills. Instead, you're gossiping. You're not preparing for the session. And then afterwards, when we're done, you're still talking and you're not taking your supplements. You're not taking your protein afterwards. You're not doing any active stretching post-workout, you're not meditating, you're not doing the things that you need to do to get to that top level. Well, now you're criticizing them positively and you're providing a clear point of what they can do. I need to stop gossiping when I get to training, and instead I need to focus on the task at hand. When I'm warming up, I need to actively visualize when I'm executing my throws or my lifts or my sprints, whatever athlete, whatever sport you're doing. When I'm doing that, I need to try to do it from a precise manner. Now you're taking all of these lines of communication and you're really embodying what that goal is going to be. So coaches, we need to provide some sense of criticism, but the criticism has to have an action and an expectation. So if there's an action of what we want them to do and an expectation of the level that we want it done at, now they know where to go. It's just like managing an employee. If you can clearly tell them your goal, they can fill it in as long as they know what the goal is and what the expectations are. So establish that as a key means to being a positive coach behind developing Olympians. Finally, that third key factor that coaches can use to develop Olympians is to develop the plan with all manners of stress factored into the plan. One of the biggest failures that I've seen in coaches is that we like to plan pretending that the world exists in a vacuum. And this has even happened with sports performance coaches. They'll sit there and say, well, this is the stress that they're dealing with, and they're only factoring in what they're doing in the weight room. But they're not factoring in the fact that they've got to pay their cell phone bill. At certain times of the month, they might have specific tasks that they have to do from a work perspective to try to improve. And then we're not factoring in what are the pressures from their parents. A lot of parents might not support their children if they want to become an Olympian because there's not a lot of money in the training behind becoming an Olympian. And so now that's an extra stress, and maybe their girlfriend or their boyfriend is upset that they're spending more time at the gym. Well, that's extra stress. So as a coach, what can we do? We can sit there and we can design the plan for their sport. We can design the plan for their technique. We can design a plan with them. This is how many days a week I would need you to meditate. This is how many days a week I need you to be in the sauna. This is how much protein you need to eat every single day. This is what you need to carry with you when you travel on an airplane. This is the food I want you to eat in the airport. This is what I want you to do when you go to training today. This is what I want you to do when you go to training tomorrow. This is what I want you to think about when you're talking to your mom, when you're talking to your dad. Factor in all these different levels of stress. Teach them skills that they can utilize to handle the stress. Now you can take those skills that you've mastered because you're older and you have a little bit more wisdom, and now you can sit there and recognize to manage stress and become a better individual, to become a better athlete, you have to practice over and over again. And the sooner you can get your athletes to manage their own stress levels more effectively, the better they become as athletes. And that's gonna make stress management much easier, and in turn your lines of communication is going to be a lot more effective, and everything and all of those big time goals, it's going to be easier to get from point A to point B. That's not saying it's going to be easy, it will be easier. So those are some key factors that coaches and athletes can utilize to become an Olympian. So if you need help with diminishing stress, decreasing stress, you can click on the link down below. You can pick up a phone consultation with me and I can help you design a program or a plan around diminishing stress for your athletes, or for you if you are an athlete. If you want more content around mental preparation, click on this card right here. Until next time, guys, peace.